He had a 75% catch rate last year as the number one alpha with that many targets. I mean,
Incredible.
the dude, there's a chance that CeeDee Lamb hits 200 targets this year. I know that
Who's
sounds
there?
crazy.
And it's not, because who's there, like you mentioned?
He's him.
Every single year, we have breakouts and busts in the first round of our fantasy football drafts.
True.
And today, we're going to be trying to predict the top 12 fantasy scorers, excluding quarterbacks, going into this video, okay? So stay tuned. We're going to be having a lot of conversations. Zach, I'm going to break it down into groups, okay? If you have picks 101 to the 104, I want you to rank these top 4 players. Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Christian McCaffrey.
All right, 4 superstars, 4 guys that you are thinking about drafting. If you have a top 4 pick, I don't think you can really go wrong. In fact, in my projections, Badaki, in PPR points, the lowest scorer in this group is scoring 379 points. That's over 22 per game. The highest scorer is scoring 382 points. That's 22 and a half per game. So all these guys should be fantasy superstars. But I'll tell you what, for me, at the 101, I feel like every year people are trying not to make it Christian McCaffrey for some reason. It's still Christian McCaffrey. Guys, there is a reason that Christian McCaffrey, since the year 2019, that's 5 years ago. It'll be 6 years this year. Since 2019, CMC has either been the first or second player in overall ADP in fantasy drafts. There's a reason for that.
That's
because he is dominant and because he is always up there in scoring over the 20 point per game mark, of course, if he's healthy. So I have him averaging out at about 22 and a half fantasy points per game. I got him with a healthy share of the Niners rushing market, 56%. I have him with a healthy 16% target share. And that's not abnormal for a guy like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he is constantly earning targets within an offense. Last year, he had 19% of the Niners target share. So with them adding a guy like Ricky Pearsall, I don't think that's going to necessarily negatively impact him, but it is something that we should consider. I still think he's double-digit touchdowns on the ground in a great offense. He's going to get his through the air. He's probably going to score over 5 receiving touchdowns as well. If he stays healthy, he is the engine that makes the Niners run. I mean, he is one of the main reasons they actually made it to the Super Bowl in 2023. So I'm not trying to overthink it at the 101. Is there a different 101 for you before we move on?
No, this is consensus for me. I think this is consensus with the fantasy community. I think there is a conversation to have somebody as a 101 at a different position, and that maybe we can go into, maybe this is your second player. I'm not necessarily sure how you feel about this guy, but yes, CMC is consensus 101. Don't overthink it. Like Zach said, 24.5 fantasy points per game. That is incredible. The closest guy next to him behind that was 21. 3.5 points behind. That was Kyren Williams, and he was the 7th overall running back. Maybe we'll talk about him in this video. We don't know, man. I don't know where he has. Maybe not. All right, take us through the next player here. If I'm not mistaken, you do, once again, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill. Those are the top 4 players. Who's your second player on this list?
So for me at the 102 right now, it is CeeDee Lamb. Coming out after an incredible breakout year, over 180 targets in 2023, over 1,700 receiving yards, over 23.5 points per game in PPR leagues. That is higher than Jamar Chase has ever scored. That is higher than, I believe, Justin Jefferson's ever scored. I mean, it's a ridiculous season that he had last year. And when you break down this Dallas depth chart, who did they add?
Exactly.
They actually lost players. They lost Tony Pollard, who was great in the air. They added Zeke, who is kind of a shell of himself. Brandon Cooks is still the number 2. Michael Gallup is gone. They're expecting Jalen Tolbert to kind of take that next step within this offense. But last year, we saw CeeDee Lamb with a 30% target share. Why can't he do that again?
Yeah.
Who is going to be taking targets away from CeeDee Lamb this year? So I have him averaging out about 22 and a half points per game. It's actually, in season total, I only have less than a point difference in my projections between those two names, CMC and CeeDee Lamb. So if you want to take Lamb at the 101, I don't think it's crazy. He's the younger player, less injuries to deal with, more mouths to feed, if you want to, think about it in that light. So I would say either of these guys are eligible to be the 101 or the 102, but I think they're in a tier of their own. I think they both should be kind of the only guys you consider at that spot.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's kind of what the conversation I wanted to bring, because I do believe in the fantasy community, people would go CMC locked in, but I think there should be a conversation of having Christian McCaffrey,
Sure.
CeeDee Lamb as the
I agree.
101 because of kind of what you just said. I mean, there was no one close to both of these guys. It felt like coming into the season or at the end of the season, CeeDee Lamb played the whole season. Obviously, what would have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson would have done if they played the whole season.
Yeah.
But the quarterback play seems locked and loaded for the foreseeable future, not only for fantasy but in dynasty perspective here. So I agree. No one, or I don't think anyone should be saying it's locked in.
It has to be CMC.
Yeah, it has to be
There's
CMC.
a conversation.
There is a conversation going into your fantasy football drafts this year, whether it's Christian McCaffrey or CMC. So I do completely agree so far in the top two players.
Okay.
And like you said, you only had them, what is it, 1 point apart in your projections, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you do projections out there, see, the flip side is not too crazy here. All right, take us to your third player on this list.
By the way, there's a chance that CeeDee Lamb hits 200 targets this year. I know that sounds crazy.
And it's not, because who's there, like you mentioned. I mean, Jake Ferguson could demand some targets there, but that's
sure,
about
but
it.
not like I mean,
Not
so
like
CD
that.
had 181 targets last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I just feel like why wouldn't you continue to get him the ball more? And last thing I'll say on CeeDee Lamb before we move on, I did not know this before doing research for this video. Do you know what his catch percentage was last year? Like, on average, you're somewhere typically, if it's bad quarterback play, in the mid 60s, low 60s. If it's good quarterback play, sometimes you're like high 60s, sometimes 70. He had a 75% catch rate last year as the number one alpha with that many targets. I mean,
Incredible.
The dude, he's him. Like, people should not question him at all. All right, at the 103, I do think this is very close between two names. But for me, considering how young this player is, how explosive he is, he and his quarterback have not been able to stay healthy together for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I will put Jamar Chase. I have him right now projected to average 22.4 fantasy points per game. I don't know if T. Higgins is going to be there. I assume he will be there. It doesn't really matter, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, in 2022, Jamar Chase commanded 30% target share alongside T. Higgins. Right? Last year, 26% target share alongside T. Higgins. And a lot of people are going to be scared to draft Jamar Chase because he was a high draft pick last year. But no one could have foreseen the injuries that Joe Burrow sustained that completely derailed that entire offense. Meanwhile, if you remember in 2022, we had Jamar Chase averaging over 20 points per game and the wide receiver 4 on a per game basis. I think he bounces back. And then at the 104, I have Tyreek Hill, who, you want to talk about guys who just dominate target share? I mean, that is the definition of what Tyreek Hill does in that offense. He had a 30% target share his first year in Miami. Do you know he had a 33% target share last year? He had a 33% target share in Miami alongside Jalen Waddle. That is ridiculous.
That's why I'm scared about Waddle. Anyways, continue.
This is not one of those scenarios where you're like, well, I'm going to pass on Tyreek because I can get Jalen Waddle later. Like, great, but you're not getting Tyreek Hill. You're getting Jalen Waddle. Barring injury, I think both of these guys are going to be absolute superstars for fantasy football. I love the quarterback that they're attached to. It really all comes down to health. If they're healthy and their quarterbacks are healthy, they will be fantasy superstars.
And no question about it. If Joe Burrow, it really has hindered Jamar Chase these past couple of years because of those injuries, where a lot of people have been saying, oh, what about Jamar Chase? Notice about a player that we haven't even spoken about yet, and they have a new quarterback. We'll definitely get to him on this list a little bit later, so stay tuned. So I agree, Jamar Chase, I think there's for me, I have Tyreek Hill as third.
Okay.
Because
I don't hate that.
Because of, I guess, the upside, the explosive plays that he can bring to this offense here. And look, let's be honest, if we go back and look at 2023, he was 0.2 behind CeeDee Lamb, and he missed the game. There's no doubt in my mind Tyreek Hill would have finished as a wide receiver 1, and then there would have been another question. Maybe that would have just pushed Tyreek Hill to be easily locked in, maybe the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2 in fantasy community. At the moment, it's CeeDee Lamb because of how he finished, which there's no argument to that. I'm just saying, what if he would have finished as the wide receiver 1? And what if he would have played every single game?
Sure.
We could have easily been in this opportunity here. I think all these 3 guys is wide receiver A, B, C. That's how I'm seeing it right now.
Sure.
I feel really confident in however way you really want to take these guys. So I
think
this
the
group.
top 4 is like my favorite spot this year. And I know that's like stupid. Like, of course you want one of the best players, but oftentimes I like the back end of a draft because I get 2 really good players in a snake. But I actually feel like the top 4 is like so good this year. But hey, you do not have to wait until the fantasy season to play fantasy football. Yeah, okay, we're in the month of June. You're not going to have your home league draft for a while. It doesn't matter. You can play right now, real money, real leagues, real tournaments. You can draft in fantasy football today. Use the code LAND to sign up to Underdog Fantasy. There is a link in the comment section that you can click directly. When you submit your first deposit, we'll match it 50% up to $250, meaning you get $125 free dollars on us just for using our code. And by the way, they also have special pick'ems if you like to kind of say like, okay, NBA Finals, for example, is Luka Doncic going to score this much points over under, right?
Oh,
they have special pick'ems for the NBA Finals. The most recent one for the Champions League was Vinicius Jr. over under 0.5 shots. It's just a very easy bet for you to kind of get rolling over there. So if you want to win some money, have some fun, check out the pinned comment. Let's draft together. What's next for us here?
Yeah, going into group 2 here, I have a little bit more names. This group goes into the 105. So if you have the 105 pick to the 110, this is kind of the sweet spot for some of these players at the moment. Consensus rankings. I want to know where you rank these guys. All right, Breece Hall, right? Breece Hall. Bijan Robinson. So you start off with 2 running backs here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown. And the next guy that is consensus rankings from the 105 to the 110 is Justin Jefferson. Where do you have these 5 players?
Yeah, Justin Jefferson. I think I'm going to take some heat when it comes to my ranking of Justin Jefferson. Like, I fully expect to take some heat on that. We'll talk about him here in a second. But my 5th overall ranked player at this point is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And again, these are PPR rankings.
This guy's stupid.
Yeah, right. In a half PPR, you could probably put these running backs a little bit higher, but Amon-Ra in the last 2 years, the worst it's been for him is a 28% target share. Jameson Williams is probably going to take another step up, but that's not the guy that you funnel your offense through, right? That's a guy that, you know, because Amon-Ra is dominating over the middle of the field, you can kind of pop it down deep down the field. But I think he'll have a career high in targets. If you look at from the year 2021 onwards, his targets have gone up each year. Increasing. 119, 145, 164 last year. I have him projected to see 174 targets. And he's one of those guys out of the slot, kind of similar to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee plays a little bit more all over the field, but they have a high catch percentage. Like, they are funneling the offense over the middle of the field. High catch percentage, PPR leagues, they're going to dominate for you. Now, Amon-Ra might not have the same touchdown equity that some of the other wide receivers in this top 12 might have, but he is just so consistent. His floor is so safe. At 6 and 7, this is where I personally would have some of these running backs coming off the board. Bijan Robinson at 6, Breece Hall at 7. I got Bijan scoring 19.5 points per game, a huge jump from his rookie season.
Yes.
And Breece at 19 points per game, which is actually a little bit lower than what he scored last year. I just don't think he's going to get that many receptions. We've talked about this very often. Last year, the offense was awful, but what was good for Breece Hall for fantasy purposes was that they just checked it down to him like 10 times a game. And Aaron Rodgers' offense is going to be more efficient, and he'll have more scoring opportunities, but I think he will see slightly less target share, especially considering they added Malachi Corley and Mike Williams. But Bijan Robinson, we've heard him in interviews. They want to use me like Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, boy.
And I kind of get it. Like, he is that level talent. He is that level player. He felt misused by the last regime in Arizona, and they're not messing around anymore. So I think he's easily going to see over 340 touches. Like, I think he's going to be dominant. This is his breakout season.
No question.
He's going to dominate on the ground. He's going to dominate on the air. Last year, he only had, I think, like 40% of the rushing market share. Do you know how ridiculous that is? You took a running back in the top 10 picks, a generational guy. You gave him 40% of the rushing share. That's going up at least I think 55% this year. So Bijan, then Breece Hall, both those guys are going to dominate. And then it's 3 wide receivers in a row, and I think this is where it gets a little bit controversial.
Okay.
I've got Puka at 8. I've got Justin Jefferson at 9, and I've got AJ Brown all the way at number 10.
That is wild. I mean, let's.
Okay, tell me. So are you on the side of like, okay, that's messed up, Zach? You're overthinking.
I'm on the side. I'm on the side where he's deserving to be in this group, but I think he's deserving to be higher in this group. I think when I look at this, the context and how I feel comfortable with Justin Jefferson, I still would take him ahead of Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall. Okay. I think there can be I'm 100% locked in on Amon-Ra. I think the conversation starts where is it Bijan Robinson or Justin Jefferson, purely because I do agree with everything that you said. Bijan Robinson should have a fantastic breakout year. Arthur Smith is no longer there. They bring in Zach Robinson from the Los Angeles Rams. We saw what he did with Kyron Williams this past year. He finished as a top 7 running back in fantasy football. He was the second highest running back in a fantasy points per game behind Christian McCaffrey. That's exciting. So there's 100% of conversation. I think everything that we talk about with Justin Jefferson and how everyone's saying, you know, is he quarterback proof? I think he is. I think it all depends on the on the floor, and I think that floor is safe enough for me to take him at the 106, at the 107, or at depending on who you would have ranked. I think that is the sweet spot. I don't think he should go any lower. I can understand these arguments, but I mean,
well, let me tell you why he's at 9. Then, okay. Everyone keeps saying he's quarterback proof, he's quarterback proof, he's quarterback proof. And that is true. He is quarterback proof. By the way, I still have him statted out for over 175 targets. Now, here's the issue. If you look at the last 4 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, okay, 4 years. In the last 4 years, with Kirk Cousins, he's averaging over 20 points per game. Right. In splits without Kirk Cousins, you're right, guys. He is still really good. But he is not an over 20 points per game scorer without Kirk Cousins. He is averaging around 17.7 points per game, which is funny because I didn't line these up at all, but that is my projections for him. I project him to score about 17.7 points per game. So it's not crazy to say we've seen this in history. People keep like their combat for me having him slightly lower is he's quarterback proof. You're an idiot. He's always going to dominate. And it's like, yeah, he is. But he's not as good without Kirk than when he is with him. And when you're at this point of the draft, those little things I think do actually matter. So 17.7 points per game is what I have him projected to see. I still have him with like 29 to 30% of the target share, over 170 targets. But you're playing with Sam Darnold and rookie J.J. McCarthy. At any point, that offense can change. And I get it. He's been good with these quarterbacks who are coming in and out. But what we're not remembering is that it's a different monster when, okay, Kirk Cousins goes down, the backup is in, the defense doesn't have as much to game plan around that backup quarterback. Right. Then now Sam Darnold's the guy. We have 6 months to think about this, right? That's completely different. Think about the Vikings last year. They're getting in one quarterback. He doesn't do it. It's another backup. It's another backup. Every week it's changing. And to a point, a defense can't prepare for that as well as Sam Darnold's the guy. We have 4 years of Sam Darnold's weaknesses on tape. Let's exploit this, right? So I get where people are coming from. He's an all-world talent. He's probably the most talented player in the NFL. But let's not pretend like quarterback play doesn't matter. Why do we think that Drake London is now being drafted as the wide receiver 10 in fantasy football rather than when he finished last year as a wide receiver 45? So I get where people are coming from.
I get that.
But Puka Nacua with Matthew Stafford, much more reliable. Amon-Ra St. Brown with Jared Goff, much more reliable. I mean, you can make a case for A.J. Brown with Jalen Hurts. So
I get that.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but I just think it's reasonable to be slightly concerned. And even without Kirk, he's good, but he's not like wide receiver 1 good.
Sure. And one thing I would say, because when I was doing my own research and, trying to rank some of my top players, I think when I found this, and I guess this will be my rebuttal, and maybe we could potentially move on to the third group here, is Puka Nacua, right? I think there should be an argument of him being ahead of Puka Nacua. Now, I understand that right? He has Matthew Stafford for the foreseeable future. This high-powered offense should easily continue. And Puka Nacua, bro, had a phenomenal career so far in his rookie season and has broke out and broken records, right?
Sure.
I think a lot of that came with Cooper Kupp missing 5 games. And I'm not taking that away from Puka Nacua.
Okay.
But if you look at the splits with Cooper Kupp and without Cooper Kupp, it's pretty significant. It's actually lower than what Justin Jefferson had in his quarterback carousel in the second half of the season. 15.7 fantasy points in the 12 games that he did play with. He played with Cooper Kupp. With the 5 games without Cooper Kupp, he was averaging 21 points per game, and that's pretty significant. Now, I think I think this would be the only argument. Like I said, I'm really happy to have a conversation about Bijan Robinson. I'm really happy to have a conversation about Breece Hall. Puka Nacua, I would say, I think he should easily step up because in the points per game, if we're looking at the splits with Cooper Kupp, if he stays healthy, right?
Sure.
I mean, because Cooper Kupp, let's be honest, he did come back. Was he still 100%? Probably not. He probably got 100% maybe in the second half of the season when he got a couple games underneath him. So I'll give him that. But surely with that 3-point difference with what Justin Jefferson, or not 3-point difference, but the 2.5 points difference with Justin Jefferson, 1.5, sorry, with Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua, I think there should be an argument for him to be ahead, but at the same time, I understand with the quarterback situation because Matthew Stafford. We'll take Matthew Stafford right now in a fantasy perspective, and him producing wide receivers over Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy that's coming into the year.
Look, I get it. If you want to bet on Justin Jefferson, I don't mind that. The name equity, he's done it for longer. My rebuttal to that is, well, Cooper Kupp, we're now 2 years in a row he's not been healthy, right?
Sure.
The ankle a couple years ago, and last year all the hamstring issues. He's going to be 31, and this team just, by the way, had the best rookie season ever for a wide receiver. I'm also trying to project what's going to happen, not just what Cooper Kupp has done when Puka wasn't there. So I definitely get what you're saying. I don't mind if people want to bet on Justin Jefferson because he has that name brand and that equity. He's done it longer.
Yeah,
I totally get it if that's what people want to do. But we also have to project that the offense might favor Puka Nacua because they're not sure if they can actually rely on Cooper Kupp the way that they used to. But I get it. But that's my top 10 there, as AJ Brown is the last one.
Yeah, phenomenal group so far. And then we're going to the group 3, which is the 111 to about the 201, maybe throw in another player in here. So here's some 3 players: Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, and our first and only rookie so far coming into the 2024 season, which a lot of people have hype on, Marvin Harrison Jr. I just want to throw Malik Neighbors in there because I'm a Giants fan, let's be honest. But Marvin Harrison Jr., rank those 3 guys for us.
So I'll say, okay, so at number 11, it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs for me. I think he is absolutely worthy of a late first-round pick. You can make a case for him actually at 10th overall if you really want to. What he did last year disappointed people to start the season. And then he really came on big time. He came on in big ways towards the back half of the season. But we're talking about a guy last year who, as a rookie running back, had 14% of the target share. I mean, we're talking about some rookie wide receivers who we would be happy if that's what they had. Do you know what I mean? He had 72 targets as a rookie running back who was splitting time with David Montgomery. Why would that target share not go up, right? So I think he's one of those rare running backs in a PPR league who could catch 70, 80 balls if things really go his way, behind one of the league's best offensive lines. 12 to 15 touches in that backfield is way more valuable than, let's say, 12 to 15 touches in Carolina's backfield, for example, right? So I think on a per touch basis, he's going to dominate. I have him at 17.5 points per game in my projections. And number 12, this is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. You're going to put a guy here who's never taken a snap in the NFL? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Marvin Harrison Jr., my 12th ranked player. And think about some really good wide receivers who have stepped into good quarterback play as a rookie, right?
Sure.
Jalen Waddle broke the rookie record for receptions with Tua, right? Puka Nacua last year steps in with Matthew Stafford. different because Marvin was drafted in top 5.
Sure.
Generational wide receiver. So who's the last person who's done that, really? Jamar Chase? Jamar Chase? Would you have wanted Jamar Chase in his rookie year? Absolutely, you would have wanted Jamar Chase in his rookie year. So we have seen Kyler Murray produce high-level fantasy wide receivers in DeAndre Hopkins. And now Marvin Harrison Jr., we're getting reports that the guy works too much. We got to get this guy off the field.
Slow him down.
He is putting in too much work. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr., everything is there. The draft capital, right? The talent, what this prospect could be in the NFL. And then instantly stepping into an offense where he can be the alpha of the offense. Yes, Trey McBride is going to eat. But outside of Trey McBride,
who else is there?
It's the Marvin Harrison Jr. show, baby. I mean, he is going to dominate. I think he scores about 17 points per game. I think that's pretty healthy expectation for one of the best wide receiver prospects we've seen. I mean, keeping in mind that when Jamar Chase came in, he scored about 18 points per game. And then at 13, I've got Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to have a fantastic year behind the Philadelphia offensive line.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to be as involved in the air as we're used to seeing, but he's going to dominate behind that offensive line. And I think he puts up over 1,300 rushing yards if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, look, I agree with all these guys. I think Jamar Chase, I also think could be in a conversation to be somewhere in Group 2. Jameer Gibbs, Jameer Gibbs.
Jameer Gibbs.
Could have a conversation to be in Group 2, just because of how the slow start in the first 4 games he had, and then he missed 2 games. If you remember correctly, he started those first 4, missed the 2 games, and then came out, and then he got that 80% workload in that backfield there at certain games, like 87% in week 7, 70% in week 9, and it kind of went up and down.
Sure.
But if you were to look at that pace, obviously extrapolation is not the best. Jameer Gibbs, if he would have continued, if gotten that full workload for the whole season, he could have easily finished as a top 5 running back. And then there would be completely different conversations about Jameer Gibbs and then even about David Montgomery and what that would have looked like. So I love Jameer Gibbs. I think, once again, the conversation could easily go up to this Group 2. Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, by the way, just quickly, I have him ranked as my RB4.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, look,
I don't mind if you take him at 10th. I actually have him in my projections to be a higher scorer than A.J. Brown. I know this is a bit weird, but when I'm doing my projections and rankings, I'm also trying to I feel a little bit better about A.J. Brown.
Sure.
There's less risk, I guess, with an injury.
Nah, I definitely get you there. And Jameer Gibbs, I think, is going to have a phenomenal year.
I agree.
And just to close it out there, I agree. Saquon Barkley, phenomenal offensive line, the best offensive line he's going to be playing with. Sure. Can he stay healthy as well? And then Martin Harrison Jr., phenomenal. At least hopefully breakout year there with Kyler Murray, who has produced DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, and the list really goes on. Well, really just those two in recent history with Kyler Murray. So we're excited about all these guys here going into the 2024 season.
Please let us know in the comments what you disagree with. Now, there's a way to do that respectfully. You don't have to tell us.
This guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson? Where? 9?
I'm ready for it. You're overthinking it. I know the comments are coming, but that's completely fine. But hey, if you guys play in best ball, super flex, 1 quarterback in season redraft leagues, and you want reliable, consistent rankings, then use the promo code LAND, become a Mother Flocker member, and you will get our rankings. You will also be able to talk to us and, ask us for advice in a DM. You also get our draft guide, which comes out in about a month's time. That will literally be everything that you need to dominate your fantasy football drafts in 2023. And of course, you're supporting the channel. You're supporting the man who's trying to put, food on the table for his family. You're supporting us. Yeah, we appreciate you. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. All up. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.